Hi everyone, I was just invited onto the JUNO news channel to do an interview about the new tough on crime laws that the Canadian government is introducing. For those of you first time watching the channel, I'm Ross McLean, former law enforcement, bodyguard to billionaires, and a security expert to global Fortune 50 companies. Now, this is being sold by the government to sound like they're going to make Canadians safer. But if you look just a little bit deeper into this, as I do, it starts to look a lot less like making Canadians safer and more about just pure politics. One of the reasons I get called onto some news media stations for commentary is because I say it like it is. I just don't give the law enforcement answer. I love the true blue, but I also want to speak honestly about whether great police work is being done for the people. I say what a lot of cops and law enforcement people are actually thinking, but they're not allowed to say. So here it is, the full, unedited, uncensored video with Mark Carney on JUNO News. You stick around to the end, give me some comments about what you think about the whole issue of tough on crime law.
Mark Carney, I am your host. Appreciate you tuning in, my friends. The Carney government has introduced measures aimed at dealing with rising crime rates across the country. Prime Minister has been under pressure to do something about crime, which has been on the increase since the Liberals took over in 2015.
These new measures will keep violent criminals and repeat offenders off our streets. They will protect the people we love, and they will deliver the justice that Canadians deserve. We're fixing ineffective policies from the past and building a stronger, safer future with tough new laws, big new resources, and practical solutions. We will bring in tougher sentences for violent and repeat offenders and invest in thousands of frontline officers to combat crime in all of its forms. We'll secure our border and protect our sovereignty. We will protect our communities and our way of life. We'll protect your safety and the people you love.
And we'll be talking to security expert Ross McLean a few minutes from now about that announcement. The measures announced today include toughening up the bail rules and longer sentences for repeat offenders. The bail reform bill is to be tabled next week and targets repeat and violent offenders. The plan also calls for the hiring of 1,000 RCMP officers. The government plans to spend $1.8 billion over 4 years to increase federal policing across Canada to combat crime. And that includes online fraud, money laundering, online child sexual exploitation, and organized criminal networks. Now, critics are already dismissing the measures as doomed to fail, as having no real teeth in the courts where it really matters, especially with so many Liberal appointed judges behind the bench. Let's take a quick look at the crime rates in Canada since 2015 when the Liberals took over government. Violent crime up 54.9%. Homicides up 29.4%. Sexual assaults up a whopping 75.9%. Gun crime up 130%. Extortion 330%. Car theft up 25%. Amazing. Also at that news conference, Mark Carney was asked about the RCMP's apparent failure to investigate Justin Trudeau, his predecessor, during Trudeau's time in office. Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre says Trudeau committed crimes that should have led to his arrest and prosecution. He says the RCMP covered it up, that the RCMP's handling of that matter may have itself been criminal. Let's listen.
Many of the scandals of the Trudeau era should have been involved jail time. I mean, Trudeau broke the criminal code when he took a free vacation from someone with whom he had government business. It's just like it's right there in the criminal code. If the RCMP had been doing its job and not covering up for him, then he would have been criminally charged. And again, he probably violated the criminal code in the SNC-Lavalin scandal. These would normally have led to criminal charges, but of course the RCMP covered it all up, and the leadership of the RCMP is frankly just despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government. But yeah, I would fire them, and in cases like that, I would report them to the police.
Now that came up during the news conference today, and RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem responded by saying he's never been influenced by political affiliations of one type or another, but he was not commissioner at the time of the SNC-Lavalin controversy. Brenda Lucki was. Now, Democracy Watch is asking for an independent prosecutor to look into that SNC Lavalin Trudeau case. We'll see if it happens. Before we get to Ross, let's listen a little bit to one of the key promises in today's announcement.
We are delivering on our election commitment to hire 1,000 new RCMP personnel across Canada. Because tougher laws are only one part of safer communities. We also need the people and the resources to enforce those laws.
Ross, it sounds to me like the Prime Minister wants to try and fix what his party broke when they first got into power in 2015. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it is. There's a lot of backpedaling going on here, Mark. When they introduced Bill C-75, everybody in law enforcement came out and said, you cannot weaken these offenses. You can't make it easier for people to get out of crimes. They turned to make it simple for the audience. They took crimes that were just felonies before, if you will. It's an American term. And they changed them into a crime that could be a felony or a misdemeanor. It's up to the prosecutor for what to do, which would then result in a lesser crime and a lesser sentence. So they say they didn't lessen sentences. Yeah, they did. And crime skyrocketed after that, Mark. And this talking points now is a direct response to the skyrocketing crime.
Well, I think it's also a response to incessant criticism that crime has continued to go up, and it's a direct result of the revolving door bail policies of this government. Now, he seems to be suggesting that that's going to stop now. Unfortunately, with so many liberal judges behind the bench, you have to wonder whether or not this is really going to happen. I mean, they are ideologically hell bent on, it seems, allowing as many violent criminals or suspected violent criminals back on the street as humanly possible. Are you cynical around the possibility that any of these measures are going to work?
Yeah, the problem with all this, he's introducing one part of the system. The system consists of the criminal, the victims, the judges, the prosecutors, the police, and the prison system and the bail system. And he's just saying these things, and he already acknowledged in questions later on, the Supreme Court has already struck down one of the things he's proposing, which is people wanted consecutive sentences. So when somebody murdered 3 people, and they got 7 years for each, they should do 21 years instead of just the 7, and then they get all 3. But the Supreme Court has already struck that down. And we have very activist judges that decide what they want to do. Like, I'm concerned when he says, oh, we're putting in all of these reverse onuses for bail, like that's going to do something. Right now, everybody knows people with guns, weapons, crimes, assaulting people, they get out as soon as they go in and go back out in the road and do it. The prosecutors have got no jails or prisons to put them into. And all they're going to do now is instead the onus is going to be on the bad guy, and the judge is going to say, okay, any reason I should not lock you up? And they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to be a good boy. And they'll say, good enough for me. And they've met the onus. The onus is not a standard. And they'll be able to put them right back out because there's no prisons or jails to put them in or funding for that. Once again, they're good at making announcements, but not actually funding, and where the rubber hits the road, where the police and corrections have to put these people in jail, Mark.
Yeah, they're going to spend money though. 1.8 billion over 4 years to increase federal policing across Canada. I don't know how much of that, if any of it, is going to actually deal with the court backlog and the prison backlog. I would hope that at least it does to some extent. But you're also a little down on this RCMP announcement about 1,000 new officers. Why is this old news in your view?
They've been promising this since Donald first brought in the tariffs. We're going to strengthen the border with 1,000 new officers. We're going to get 1,000 new cops. They haven't done it yet. They haven't started it yet. His public safety minister, who, by the way, is being called for in headlines from just about every major media company to be fired, revoked, or quit or leave the job because he's basically incompetent. I have no faith in him. He was just asked about this the other day, and they haven't implemented this yet. So it's all nice and good to say these things, but as a friend used to tell me once, I don't buy futures. You're going to do something for me next year, right? I don't buy futures. And he's selling futures here. And so far, he hasn't come through on any of his promises. Lots of talk, but no come through on the promises, Mark.
Now, you're a former police officer yourself. What do you think police officers are going to think when they see this? Is there going to be a sense that, hey, you guys missed something here?
Oh, they more than missed it. I talk to cops all the time. They'll bring somebody in, for instance, who knocks a kid off his bike, beats the snot out of him, takes his wallet, takes his iPhone, goes away. The cop catches him. They take him to court, and the prosecutors let them plead to just summary assault, or no, they let them plead to theft. They remove the assault, they remove the robbery, all of that. The prosecutors don't even prosecute for what these people should be in for. So it's all nice you can have these things. Like if you break into a house, Mark, you know what the maximum penalty is? It's 25 years in jail. That doesn't matter. Nobody gets 25 years in jail. So you can say these things, but where does the rubber hit the road? And the cops are going to look at this and say, yeah, I'm still arresting them and then arresting them the next day, and they're getting out because there's no place to put them, and the courts aren't putting them away, and the prosecutors are too busy.
I think for Mark Carney to have reached this point, he must have been under tremendous pressure, especially when you also see stories of home invasions where, like in that case in Lindsay, where the guy's home was broken into. And when he fought back, he's the one who ended up being charged. And so people are like, what the hell is going on here? They're sick and tired of this crap. And, also the fact that they've been labeled as soft on crime, the whole hug a thug attitude. Is any of that going to change as a result of this announcement?
No, and we're seeing once again the headlines on this all the time, where the courts now are considering somebody's background, if it's the right background, to reduce the sentence. Like, for instance, if you were born poor, then the fact that you beat that man up, caved his head in, and took his money, you get it's not all on you. It's on the fact that you were poor. Yet you and I know, Mark, as do all your listeners, we know people who grow up poor and they have an integrity and they don't go out and rob people. And what happens is the bad guys, they see this as a discount on the crime. And a lot of the way they're doing this is based on culture and background, right? So if you're a certain culture, certain background, then you get a discount on your crime sentence. But the problem is those cultures have problems that we're trying to help them with. And you don't help them with by giving a pass on the bad culture, if you will. So they're
Yeah,
missing the mark everywhere.
there's also that story about the judge who gave the guy a pass because he was a foreigner going through the immigration process, and he didn't want to upend the guy's application through the immigration process. So he gave him a slap on the wrist over a criminal act that may well have landed you and I in prison. you know.
The truth is, these days, Mark, for the past 15 years in Canada, the most consequential laws have not been made by the legislatures. They haven't been made in the House of Commons. They've been made by the courts, deciding whether they agree with that law or not. And they can just throw them out, even though the people all wanted them in. And they decide, no, I think that it's better off the law moves forward, and we're not going to allow that law to go forward. And, now they're even talking about getting rid of the notwithstanding clause. So you have that last defense to it. We do have rule by law here, but it is rule. Make no doubt about it. These courts are rulers. They're not people who just enforce the law. They rule with the law.
Yeah, I get the sense that the Carney government really did look at the root causes of all this crime that has happened over the last, 10 years. It's not just their bail provisions. It's the immigration process as well. I mean, you let enough people in here. In fact, by the way, there's that story where they intentionally allowed thousands of convicted criminals, people who are convicted of crimes in their home country. They basically forgave those crimes so that those people would be allowed to come into the country. And we're talking about thousands of people with criminal records, as if we couldn't appeal for the very best the world has to offer. No, we have to forgive the crimes of people in order so that they can come into the country easily. This whole thing is just absolute madness. And then when you also add on to that the economic pressures that so many people are under, that, they're going to resort to crime, some of them. I mean, we've got food insecurity in this country. We got people flocking to food banks. And what do you think? Those people are going to resort to criminal activity to put food on the table, to make sure that their kid has something to eat. In many cases, things are so hard economically for these people that they have no other choice. So I think you have to go beyond the bail provisions and the hiring of RCMP officers. You have to look at why are we having this increase in crime? Besides, of course, the bail provisions, which have served as an incentive for more crime. I mean, let's face it. If somebody's going to come in and they're out the same day after having committed a crime, well, they don't fear the law at all. They think, this is great. I can do whatever the hell I want. So to me, they need to look at the other issues, the societal issues, as to why we're having an increase in crime. What say you?
Oh, correct. Look at where the rubber meets the road. One of the things they started back with BC 75 and the police started coming in with is they stopped responding to shoplifting calls. They weren't going to go to your store when people were stealing something, right? So guess what happened? Shoplifting and retail theft went up. Gangs came in with retail theft. In fact, Carney mentioned that today. He's going to bring in extra crimes for these repeat serial shoplifting networks. That's how big a problem it is, because it wasn't being met. And Mark, where the rubber hits the road, you want to stop crime? You pay for cops, you answer radio calls from citizens, you go to the criminals, you arrest the criminals, you charge the criminals, you convict them in court, you put them away for a good period of time for it so they pay the price for it. That's how you fight crime. You don't fight crime by dancing all around it and saying, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. It's too hard on them for doing that. And, it's not going to work. Carney claims he consulted with the police on this, and he's a big consultant, right? I'm listening to the head of the Toronto Police Association saying right now, this morning, he's on talking about they're not listening to us on this gun buyback program. You're going to spend $1 billion on gun buybacks? He says, give us the money so we can stop the crime in our cities. That's what the cops are saying, but Carney's not listening to him.
Yeah, and you don't fight crime by having two-tier justice, whereby, you're going to crack down on some trucker protesting in Ottawa, but give the Prime Minister of the country a pass on obstruction of justice around the whole SNC-Lavalin controversy. Now, we had the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, come out recently, this week as a matter of fact, and talk about, that the RCMP actually covered that up. I mean, these were hard-hitting comments that he should have been properly investigated and prosecuted, but we didn't get any of that over that whole issue. And so that breeds a sense of cynicism where if you're up there, you're going to get a pass on whatever you do. And so Carney was asked about it. It came up during the news conference. And what was your sense of what happened? It was just kind of waved off or laughed off, wasn't it? It wasn't treated seriously.
Mark, as former law enforcement, I was embarrassed for the RCMP that they were stood up like props in behind him while he gave this talk, that the commissioner was there standing as a prop in behind when he gave this talk, when the leader of the opposition, as you just said that the RCMP has been despicable in not enforcing and investigating crimes by this government. And he stood there like a prop. That is not a good sign. And the RCMP, they're out now killing ostriches, not finding 5-year-old boys that are missing because they don't send the resources to it. They've got more controversies and more problems than just about anybody. And for them to stand there as a prop, I'll give them a pass, Mark. If they go stand behind Pierre Poilievre when he gives his response to what Carney said, and they'll stand there for him and see what Mark Carney has to say. Otherwise, you're being a political prop. And I just find that embarrassing.
Yeah, it really is. Ross, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really do appreciate it.
Appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work of the good journalists and independent news. It's where you get some of the truth, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Ross McLean, thank you, sir. And that's it for this edition of Straight Up with Mark Petroni. Appreciate you tuning in, my friends. Let's do it again real soon, shall we? See you next time.
Well, that's the full interview. Let me know what you think. Put your comments down below. Is this politics, or is it actually going to make people safer? If you like the information here on my channel, please follow and subscribe, and I will see you next video.